I don't think I quite understand what's happening anymore, but I think we have more evidence that the world is kind of falling apart. Because of this story, trans woman charged with hate crime for admitting she's a man. Judge disgusted. Okay, hold on. Trans woman. Okay, this is a trans woman saying that she's actually a man and then getting charged. I'm gonna have to say I'm really confused and I have no idea what's going on. I saw this on Twitter because apparently this trans woman was banned for saying that she was a man. I didn't realize it went to hate crime levels, but let's read the story and try and figure out, you know what, I'm just gonna say it now, nothing makes sense, especially not in the social justice 2019 space. But sure, there is no case and never was a case. A transgender woman who opposes transgender activism went on trial Friday for allegedly committing a hate crime during a Twitter debate. But the judge threw out the case after a single hearing, abruptly ending the United Kingdom's first transgender hate crime prosecution. In announcing his decision, District Judge John Willard declared there is no case and never was a case. Okay, but hold on. The judge is disgusted that it even went to court, apparently. Okay. Prosecutors had brought the harassment charges against Miranda Yardley, a 51-year-old transgender critic of transgender culture, based on a complaint last year by Helen Islan, a transgender rights advocate. The two had last year taken opposite sides in an online argument over gender self-identification, which has become a hotly contested issue in the United Kingdom because of planned legal reforms to let anyone change their gender without surgery. And this is actually true in the US in most jurisdictions, most notably New York, and I'm pretty sure California. Now let's talk a little bit about the oppression Olympics, identity politics, etc. Who is the most oppressed? We don't actually know. We kind of see people, using a point system, I guess, like not literally, but saying like, oh, if you're trans and gay and black, then you are really oppressed, and that's intersectional feminism. The idea that at the intersection of all these different oppressed minorities, there's something unique and different. But here's where I just don't understand. Which transgender individual is the most oppressed? Well, I'm going to have to side with the trans woman who believes that she's a man is the most oppressed because her and the other person were transgender, but she got arrested. Therefore, more oppressed because the state has oppressed you, I think. Yardley, an accountant who has had sex reassignment surgery, was among those arguing on Twitter that transgender activists are setting back women's rights and threatening their safety by allowing transgender women access to female-only institutions. Her position has long been that while gender is flexible, biological sex is a fact and should be respected. Okay. Islan, who is the mother of a transgender child and works for Mermaids, a group that advocates for transgender youth, accused Yardley's side of spreading hysteria. Yardley responded by revealing Islan's identity in a tweet that referenced the woman's transgender child. Islan then claimed that Yardley had effectively outed her son, saying the post made her feel stressed and sick, and that her family had faced harassment as a result. Okay, well, first, biological sex is a fact. I'm sorry. While I can certainly respect the academics who want to get into the nuance of the issue, I think it is not so simple to say there is only male or female to an extent, right? So it's actually Brett Weinstein who's brought this up, saying sex is actually bimodal, but it's something, I believe it's 59.15% of people will be discernibly male, and 59.15% will be discernibly female. Only about 1.7% will ever fall in between. And it's also important to point out, because people often use the intersex statistics of 1.7, maybe even 2% if we round up, to claim that, it is a spectrum. While that's true, even among intersex individuals, there is a large amount of individuals born intersex who are still discernibly male or female. What makes someone male or female isn't one simple thing. It's not your genitals. It's not just your DNA. It's grains of sand making a heap. And one of the problems is, because of that, you end up with people on the far left claiming it just doesn't exist at all. Well, here's a really good point that needs to be brought up. First, I know that the far left is going to go nuts for me even daring to say this, but my trans friends believe biological sex is real. That's why they're trans. They believe that as someone born male, they want to transition to female. They believe these are things that exist. I can respect that, absolutely. But to then see people like Nicholas Matt claim there is no biological sex, to see people... Now here's where it gets even more complicated. There's more to read in here. So I don't want to rant too much. But you end up with people who say they're trans, but don't actually do hormone therapy or anything like that, and they enter competitions and defeat women. So I think there's got to be at a certain point, we have to say something like, you can identify as a trans woman, but the legal limitations should reflect actual diagnoses or something, because you end up with this problem of people, like in sports, it's a huge problem. Well, let's read on. Yardley in May said she was excommunicated from Twitter for violating its hate speech policy by calling a transgender politician a man. Months later, Twitter specifically banned misgendering and deadnaming, which is an ideological position unique to a small faction and not the majority of people in this country or the world. When Islam's complaint reached Essex police, they deemed that Yardley had committed a hate crime, part of a trend of UK law enforcement taking action against critics of transgenderism. However, in court, Yardley's attorneys showed that Islam had regularly tweeted about her son in the past, including announcing that he had come out at school. They also showed that a Google search was sufficient to find a family photograph she had posted, as well as her personal information. Where is the evidence of harassment taking into account the need for free speech? You have to show a course of conduct, and at the moment, we have one tweet, Woolard said at one point in the hearing. Where is the evidence for Miranda Yardley outing Miss Islam's son? In throwing out the case, he ordered the state to pay Yardley's legal bills. Critics of transgender rights movement hailed the decision as a victory for free speech. Barrister Amanda Jones, who has represented clients accused of anti-trans comments, told the Mail on Sunday that the legal proceedings had been a waste of police resources and taxpayer money. The UK is a horrifying, regressive state. I'm sorry, if you live in the UK, I have very little interest in ever coming back to your country because of stories like this. Maybe it's all blown out of proportion, but I gotta say, when I hear that people are being arrested for Twitter flame wars, or that Count Dankula was arrested because he made a stupid YouTube video, I call it stupid because I'm being somewhat facetious. Obviously, his video is wildly popular. That's why they arrested him. The point is, it is so dumb to arrest someone like Count Dankula because he made his dog do a silly thing and it was offensive. Or to arrest a woman because, dare I say it, a trans woman, because she tweeted that she herself was a man. Oh my God. Was she arrested then? Or how does this work? So critics of the transgender, we read that part. Let's read on. The police and CPS routinely ignore rape threats, death threats, and abusive material targeted at women online, she said. The entire criminal justice system is falling apart from underfunding, and this case appears to have been a complete waste of public funds. Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's easy. Okay, look, you want to track down and investigate and prove something? It's very difficult. This is low-hanging fruit for lazy police. The administration wants to look effective, so what do? Low-hanging fruit nonsense. Oh, somebody said a bad word on Twitter, better arrest them. That is a horrifying reality for your country. And man, I do not envy the people in the UK, but I will say thank you. Thank you to those in the UK, because it was Great Britain that taught us Yanks exactly why we needed the Bill of Rights. And it was only shortly after we declared our independence that our founding fathers said, that country is ass backwards, and we need to enshrine a list of rights to make sure we never do anything this stupid. Although I don't think it makes us invincible, boy, do I love America. And I'm very happy we have the right to freedom of expression. And let me just say, the First Amendment is speech, assembly, religion, the press, and a redress of grievances. It is not just one thing. First Amendment does not mean speech. It means 5 things. Redress of grievances being very important. Islam sought to distance herself from the failed prosecution. The decision to prosecute was made by the CPS, not me personally, and I accept the verdict of the court. But Yardley wasn't buying it. In a post to her blog Sunday, she noted that Islam had threatened to sue her and called the woman a hypocrite. Yardley also warned that police had sought to enforce a political ideology against her, saying, I faced losing everything I worked for. Essex police said, we take all reports of hate crime incidents seriously. Meanwhile, Americans have been engaged in similar culture wars of transgender rights. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had promised to use her new Democratic majority to advance legislation recognizing gender self-identification, and the extent and even concept of hate crimes has come into question amid mounting evidence that actor Jussie Smollett staged a high-profile attack on himself. Well, I would like to point out just the title one more time. Trans woman charged with hate crime for admitting she's a man. Now, it was not that long ago. I did a video about it was a person who was arrested for misgendering someone on Twitter. Now it would appear that even being a trans person and saying that you are a man is a hate crime. Let's make this really clear. If you decide to identify, if you're born male and decide to identify as female, fine. If you then decide to say that you are in fact a male, that becomes a hate crime. So you're allowed to identify in one direction, but when you try to identify the other way, they're going to come for you and arrest you. Now, thankfully, the judge was disgusted and threw it out. But my God, UK, oh my God, what is wrong with you? The UK, you've collectively lost your minds. I'm pretty sure it's in the UK, right? Yes, the United Kingdoms. Okay, well, you know what, you guys? I'm so sorry for what you have to deal with over there. I'm gonna go to bed, and I'm gonna pull out a copy of the Bill of Rights, and I'm going to snuggle up ever so tightly to it. Although I am concerned about what's happening in this country too, I'm glad we have that document. Stick around, I got more videos coming up in just a few minutes.